Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Stephen King podcast with your hosts, Lilja, Hans Lilja. Hi, Hans.
Hi.
And I am, of course, Lou, and we're here to talk quite a few things. This is going to be a spoiler-filled podcast, so if you've not seen Kingdom Hospital or read Stephen King's latest short story, Thunder Days, is that the right title? I always
Summer Thunder.
Summer Thunder.
Yep.
Sorry. If you have not read Summer Thunder, we'll put time marks in the podcast for you so that you can skip those sections, but that's going to be probably 3/4 of the podcast, so you'll just basically be able to listen to the news, and that's about it. So
Yep.
Hopefully you've at least seen Kingdom Hospital, because that's going to take up the bulk of this podcast. But before we do that, we're going to get into the news. So Hans, take it away. Welcome, welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the death room.
Yes, and we have quite a lot of news this time, and we're going to start with a new director to, I'm not sure if it's a TV version or a movie version, but it's going to be some kind of version of It. And this time it's Cary Fukunaga, I hope that's correctly, yeah, who has also directed True Detective, who's been a big hit lately, and he's going to do It now.
And it's planned for the theaters.
Yeah, you're right. And I think they have had just as many directors for It now as they have for the remake of Stan. So we'll see how long this one lasts.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking really forward to, hopefully, like you said with the Stan, the revolving door changes quite a bit. But based on his work on the recent HBO series True Detective, and I believe he's done some other things in the terror-related field, I think he would be an excellent choice for It. The scenes in True Detective where they were hunting down the serial killer on his island with that maze and all that stuff, those scenes were really, really well done, really tense stuff. So I think he could do a great job with the scarier scenes in It as well. So really looking forward to that. Hopefully that comes to fruition.
Yeah.
Next item up is, if you remember, we reported that Stephen King was going to have a nonfiction piece in the next issue of Tin House, a short piece called The Ring, and it has to do with his wedding ring and wedding rings in general, I guess. So he's want to do these straight up pieces from time to time, and I'm sure he has some wonderful insights into it. I've not read it myself. Have you read the article, Hans? Or
No, I haven't been able to find it yet. So
okay, so it's out in Tin House. I believe that's a quarterly magazine, so you can get it at the publisher's website and check out Hans' site for that article and the link to get the magazine if you want to read that article.
Yeah. Next thing is something I find quite interesting. It's Centipede Press, who is releasing a book called Salem Slot Studies in a Horror Film, which is a book about the movie. New interviews, and pictures, and stories about how it happened. And there's, if you go to my site, there's a link to Centipede Press site about the book, and there's a great picture of Stephen King with a big mustache. So it shows how long ago this was. And I definitely think this is going to be an interesting book.
Yeah, it's that picture that you're talking about. That really, you can really see how much Joe Hill looks like his dad.
Yeah,
when
definitely.
you look at that picture. Like if somebody said, "Oh, there's Joe Hill," I would say, "Oh yeah, okay." But
yeah.
Yeah, some of the pictures that they do show, if you go to the link off of Lilja's site to where you can order the book from, there's some really cool behind-the-scenes pictures there. You know, one with James Mason standing beside the actor that plays the lead vampire, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and some behind-the-scenes stuff, location shots of the house and that. There's two editions of the book. One is the limited edition, And it's probably sold out by now. It's $250.
Yeah.
The other one's a paperback edition, and it's already available, actually.
Yeah,
March 15th was
yeah,
the shipping date for that. And I've seen some comments about people saying it's pretty pricey, and I guess
yeah,
that's just the going cost for these types of limited edition or specific type targeted books, because $40 for paperback sounds like a lot.
yeah.
And if you're a collector or a fan, I'm guessing that you're going to get it. I'm still struggling with whether or not to get it, to be honest. I probably will, but because I know, like, I just recently bought, there's a new series of, if you're a Star Trek fan like I am of the original series, there's a new series called These Are the Voyages, and they go through the production of each episode of the original series one by one. So that's the most in-depth book, I think, since, Stephen Whitfield's The Making of Star Trek. And those books go for $40 a piece. So if you get all 3 seasons, because there's going to be 3 volumes, that's $120. But
Yeah.
I'm a big fan, so I'm buying them because I'm finding out things in those things that I never knew about the original series. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that you do know, and I'm hoping that and assuming that if you buy this behind this Tobe Hooper's Salem's Lot book, that you're going to find out a lot of stuff that you never knew about as well. So.
Yeah. And books like this is probably a little harder to sell because the audience are very
Yes.
specific, so they have to price them a little higher, I think.
Yeah, but from the samples they put on the website, it looks like a really in-depth book, so I'm probably going to end up getting it. But
Yeah. Same here.
don't wait too long, I guess, because it's already on sale. So
Yep.
heads up to everybody out there. And if anybody's gotten it, please send in some feedback. Let us know what you think of it. It'll help our buying decision.
Yep.
Not
Definitely.
just ours, but the other listeners too,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
For me and Hans, probably the cost of shipping is going to be almost, if not more, than the price of the book. So
Yeah, probably.
yeah, that's too bad. Okay, what do we got next? More book stuff. And we have now the full dust jacket for Mr. Mercedes. And gotta say, Mr. King has that ability to take relatively innocuous, everyday things that, at least in North America, I don't know if you have an ice cream truck in.
Yeah, we have, but it looks very different from the one you
Does
have
it?
in the US. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So,
much geekier.
oh, okay. Geekier. Smaller. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It looks more like just a truck that you use to transport stuff. It's not so cool as yours.
Oh, okay.
If you can call an ice cream truck a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean,
It,
this stuff has popped up in other franchises now, but I remember if anybody's a fan of Spawn, Todd McFarlane's Spawn, there was a ice cream truck that a serial killer used, so that was kind of creepy. So this is not new territory, but still King has the ability to take something that we usually, most of us associate with good times. So with it was clowns. Now we've got this ice cream truck, and it's got the delicious swirl soft ice cream on it, but it's got that creepy happy face sticker on it, and now we have a name for that happy face. It's Mr. Tasty.
Yep. Never gonna buy from the ice cream truck again.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I must say I really like this cover. I think it's one of the best in a long time.
Yep.
I think, and this really wants to make me. I really want to read the book when I see it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Next up is Under the Dome. The second season has started shooting, and we have learned that the country singer Dwight Yoakam, will be showing up. And I must say I really don't know who this person is. If he's a well-known singer in the US, I guess he is.
Yeah, country and western singer. Yep.
Yeah, I have to admit that's not my kind of music, and I don't think he's very big here in Sweden, so you have to excuse me for not recognizing him.
His biggest days were 20 years ago or so, so
Yeah.
quite understandable.
Yep, that's when they end up under the dome.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to have a complicated relationship with Big Jim. We'll see where he's been hiding under what kind of rock now that hasn't showed up in Under the Dome yet.
Yeah, well, we could have a bit of fun with his absence in the series because he's supposed to play a barbershop owner, and Big Jim, obviously with his hairline, obviously doesn't get haircuts very often, so we can buy into that relationship. Though they say it's a complicated relationship, and from my experiences, relationships with your barber are usually pretty straightforward.
Yeah, might be more complicated if you don't have that much hair.
Absolutely, yeah. So some shady dealings must be going on there, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, so a little break from movies and books and TV. We're back to the stage, live theater, and an interesting article was put up on Han's site about The Shining being performed at a school, I guess as a fundraiser in Omaha. And I assume these performances are finished now. So
Yeah.
if anybody that lived in the area and got to see the play, again, please let us know. I think it was Friday, March 2nd from the looks of this. Or no, 27th, sorry.
Yeah, I got an email from someone who was attending,
Oh,
and
cool.
they were pretty happy with it. So
Okay.
hopefully they'll have some photos for me to put on the site soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and here's maybe the news this time that I'm most excited about, actually. And that is that, well, the only thing we know is that something is going to happen on April 7th. And that might not be so exciting to most of us. But it's Cemetery Dance who's teasing us. And we know some clues. And we know that it will probably be something dealing with Stephen King. It's something that is among the biggest things Cemetery Dance has ever done. Something that involves at least 3 authors and 8 books. We don't know how many each author will bring to the table. So the guess is that at least 1 or 2 books will be by Stephen King. And they are going to announce this on April 7 and then start taking pre-orders, and the release date is sometime this summer. And the guesses have been exploding over the internet. Everything from limited editions of Mr. Mercedes to the old Sword in the Darkness being released, Cannibals being released. And if you remember, the title has slipped my mind now, but Cemetery Dance managed to buy an unfinished script from a collector who was selling by King. And some people are speculating if that's what they're going to release. So, exciting news. Do you have any thoughts on that, what it might be?
Well, the last one that you talked about, if it's an unpublished play or book or whatever, they'd have to get permission from King before they could print it. So that if he gave permission for that, that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
In general, it's kind of exciting, but I'm not a limited edition collector, and if that's what this turns out to be, it'll be, the only thing is, well, is this something that I haven't read yet? And if it is, that will actually tick me off a bit, because it's something that I'll probably never get a chance to read if it's a limited edition thing. So,
but it might be something like Blockade Billy. It was released as a kind of trade edition that wasn't that pricey and then limited. So and I think if they release, if it's a new book, I don't think they're going to release it just as a very expensive limited. They would probably do some kind of cheaper version as well.
Again, as a non-collector, I'm happy for the collectors if they get something that they're excited about. For myself, I'm just more curious, is it something I haven't read yet? So limited editions don't really hold much appeal to me, so I can't afford them.
No.
And the only thing I'm really interested in is something new that we haven't read yet, and I hope that it's going to be released in another form at some point down the road. So from that perspective, I'm hoping to hear that it's something new and something that will be released, like A Bad Child.
My guess is that it is something new, mainly because they say that it's among the biggest thing they have done. And I mean, they have done limited version of trade books. So it being just limited of Mr. Mercedes doesn't sound as big as they had made it out to be in the teasers. So I would suspect
most of his books have already been released in limited editions, right? So what?
Yeah.
Are they doing a collection of something? The Dark Tower again, or?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's been speculation that it's like 40 years since Carrie was released, and I think Firestarter is about having some kind of anniversary, and it might be something like that. But I think the re-release, even if it's a very beautiful limited edition, sounds a little too small maybe for the announcement. So I'm hoping for something new.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll know on April 7th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so back to the silver screen, and a movie that Hans and I have talked about in previous podcasts and excited about the potential for this being a really good movie is A Good Marriage. And apparently there will be a screening of it in April 24th. There was a contest posted up on King's Facebook page. They were going to draw 2 tickets for a screening of the film. The tickets and the screening are free. You have to get your own means of transportation to get there, but they will provide the hotel. So that draw was scheduled for, I believe it was March 26th, but I've just gone to the website and I haven't found the winners. Did you know if anybody was announced yet? Or
No, I don't think they have announced the winners yet.
So, whoever you're out there, if you listen to our podcast, well, by the time this comes out, you'll probably have already. But it's not till April, so if you've won, feel free to share the news with us. I haven't seen anything, and really hoping to hear some post-screening reactions to this because I really have high hopes for this movie.
Yeah, if it could live up to the story itself, it's going to be a great movie because I love the story.
Yeah,
it's a great story. But as usual, we have to be a little bit skeptic because too often we get disappointed in the movie versions. So, but you never know.
No.
Next up is something for the real collectors. It's a vinyl version of the soundtrack to Creepshow. And I don't know about you, but I don't actually have a record player anymore.
Nope.
No, so
no, I don't either.
But for those of you who have, Waxwork Records is releasing an LP with a soundtrack, and they are putting in a booklet with pictures and texts, and it's actually looking really cool. I wish it was released on CD instead of vinyl, personally. So, then I would definitely consider buying it. But as a vinyl, no, I don't think I'm gonna get this. Even though the booklet looks very interesting.
Just looking at the artwork that's included with it, it might be worth it just for that.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I do miss about LPs is because you had a bigger record size over CDs. Yeah. The artwork is a lost art with CDs. With these LPs, I mean, there's almost like a book here.
Yeah.
So it looks pretty cool. And I see from your posting that a couple of people have posted that they're excited to get it. So I'm putting the call out to you three, Rob, Ed, and Peter. If you get this, send us pictures, give us a review, and we'll put it in the podcast. So do an audio review or something, or make a video review, and we'll link to the website because this looks really cool.
Audio review of some, including some of the music, because I don't remember the music actually from the movie. If it's good or if it's
pretty horror-ish, so it's nothing. Yeah. But I think it's just the whole package, right? So
yeah, it's not something you put on a Friday night.
So appropriate enough. Mark it down your calendars. Yeah, pre-orders start April 1st, so already be open by the time this podcast comes out. So mark that down, guys, and we'll be able to get some pricing information at that time too.
Yeah.
Boy, just too much stuff to keep up with. Money.
Yeah.
What do we got next? Oh, The Stand.
Yeah.
Well, what can we say? Josh Boone, who is also, as I believe we reported earlier, developing Lisi stories for the big screen, is also now has been hired by Warner Brothers to direct a 3-hour R-rated, feature film version of The Stand. Details are very sketchy at this point. A 3-hour movie, that's a lot of material to cram into one movie.
Yeah.
Again, being hired to spec out a script is a long ways from actually having it in the can and ready to go for us to see in the theater.
My guess is that they will remove chunks of the book, that storylines that doesn't even appear and just concentrate on a few maybe to manage to get it covered.
Yeah, you'd have to really pare it down. Part of the appeal of The Stand is the fact that it's a global thing, and to do that, a global story in a 3-hour movie, I don't know. And plus to make it R-rated, which limits the market as well. So, hey, we'll keep our fingers crossed, but based on our history with The Dark Tower and I'm not holding my breath on this one.
No, I think we're going to have to be happy with if they're done just. Because there's been so many ups and downs and ins and outs to these on and offs, so I'm not even sure that they're going to be done, but it sounds interesting. Okay, and the last news is that a DVD is going to be released containing the complete series called Monsters. And for those of you who knew Tales from the Dark Side and TV shows like that, this is something very similar to that. Half-hour episodes, and one of the episodes is based on Stephen King's The Moving Finger and aired originally back in '92. And for those who remember what this story is about, it's rather those who don't remember, it's about a finger coming up in the sink in the bathroom of this poor guy.
I think I remember this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually seen this one earlier, and well, the special effects leaves something to wish for. I think that's the most kind thing I can say.
Okay.
But it's a testament of the time, so it's interesting. I think you should definitely check it out. might be a bit pricey to get the entire box. I think it was like $99 or something for.
Yeah, 72
but then
episodes.
You get 72 episodes on 9 DVDs. So if you're interested in this kind of TV shows, I'm sure you're going to enjoy the other
if you're into
well,
like Tales from the Crypt and that kind of stuff, then I believe for the most part the series has totally escaped my memory, but I do believe it was a cheesy series. But as somebody posted on your site, that's part of the charm with the series too. So
so I think if you want to see the entire series, then it might be worth buying. For only the moving fingers, what interests you, maybe not.
Who knows? Maybe it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it might be.
All right, so that is the news for this segment.
Yeah. Okay, and now, as promised, we are going to talk about Kingdom Hospital. And personally, this is the second time I see this series. Watched it pretty much after it aired, a couple of weeks after. And it's the first season of 13 episodes. The first and second episode is about an hour, if you remove all the commercial, maybe a little more. And the rest of the episodes is about 40 minutes long. And this one is actually based on a Danish TV show called The Kingdom by Lars von Trier. And I don't know if that one is released in the US. Here in Sweden it's very popular, or rather it was when it aired. It's pretty old now, because it had one Swedish actor who played the role of Stegman, as he's called in the US version. And he was actually the bone of the series, because he's Swedish, and as in the US version he's been accused of male practice, and he flees to Denmark, to Copenhagen, and he hates the Danish people. It's the worst thing he knows. And every night, to relieve his pressure, he goes up on the roof of the hospital, Riks Hospital as it's called, and from there he can see over the water, and he can actually see Sweden. And he curls his fists and he screams, excuse my language, but Danish. And that's how he releases his pressure. And I think that's the one thing they have missed a bit in the US version, because Stegman is from Boston and he hates this small town, but you don't get the same tension as you get here in the Danish version.
I guess that's regional, because I mean I don't live in that either area, but I picked up on it that Lewiston and then Boston would be antagonistic. I mean, is that a real thing where you live, that the Swedes and the Danish have tension?
No, not really. I think way back in like a couple of centuries ago.
Oh, okay.
There were some wars where the Danish belonged to Sweden, and they were ruled by the same king and stuff like that. But it's really no tension now.
Okay.
So, but that, as you say, that might be a regional thing, because I didn't really pick up. I know he referred to Boston being better some of the times, but I didn't get the same. But that might be since I'm not from the US.
Sure.
And this hospital is built on the ground where they had an old hospital, and before they had a factory burned to the ground with a lot of child labor was killed in the fire. And one of the children, a girl called Mary, is reaching out to the living in the hospital, mostly to one of the patients, Mrs. Drews, who sets out to try and help her. I don't know what your impression was of the show, but I actually did not like it as much this second viewing as I did the first one.
Well, for myself, I kind of remember when it was on, but as I was telling Hans, I tried watching it, and I think I missed an episode or something, and this is like 10 years ago on DVRs and stuff. Like, we didn't have that. We just had a VCR, and I think the basketball playoffs interrupt part of it too, so the momentum of the series was lost on me, and I never really got around to watching it again, because I think then like Rose Red and all that other stuff came out later, and they all got mixed up in my head, and I watched a bit of Rose Red, and it didn't really do much for me either, so I really lost the thread of the series and everything. So when we decided to podcast about it, I had to do a crash watch of it. And if you listen to the commentary, Stephen King says that this is one long story and it's not really episodic. And for the most part, I agree with him. So if you have never seen it and you pick up the DVD set, it's the best way to watch the series, because once you get into each episode builds on the next one. And once you get into the mindset of the series, the momentum, you keep the momentum. And I watched it over this week, and I was never bored. So by the end of the series, I actually quite enjoyed it. And there's a lot of in-jokes and we'll get into some more discussion about. I want to do a bit of comparison to Golden Years, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and it really does play like one long story. So I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, my impression was that it was a little bit too strange.
Oh, definitely. Which is one of the reasons why I like it.
Yeah. So now you're the strange one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought sometimes they were very much about Mary thing, and they were going to save her and everything. And then we just got an episode about that baseball player, and then we left all the thread of the story and focused on something totally different for that episode. And that felt very out of place to me, to be thrown out like that and then back to the story. I think I didn't expect that to come, actually.
I can only speculate that there's several factors into why that was done from the series production standpoint. Even though if you watch the DVD set and listen to the commentary, that you really get the feeling that this was a one-shot deal. But from the little bit of digging I've done on the internet, if the series had done well, like Under the Dome, ABC would have been glad to expand it into further seasons. So I think an episode like you mentioned, the baseball player, which I actually liked quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because if you know about the Boston Red Sox and the poor chap at first base who fumbled the ball, I'm not going to say his name because I feel kind of bad after watching that episode. Who knows where this guy is right now in his head, right? But I think that was just a sample episode to show the network that we can do this long story, plus we can have like a guest of the week come in and tell their story and move on. And then like a lot of TV series on American television, they will do like an overarching season arc, but they space it out over the course of the season, and like you might get one episode that really deals with the show's mythology, then you get like 3 or 4 standalone episodes.
Yeah.
So this was a bit of the reverse of that, but I didn't really mind it, and there was a nice. I mean, they kind of tied it in at the finale. It wasn't a necessary tie-in, but they just didn't totally forget about it. And over the course of the series, there were certain threads that were dropped, but I mean that's kind of like life, right? Some things just kind of go into dead ends. So and they weren't super important. The things that they didn't answer would have been nice to have everything answered, sure. But comparing this show to Golden Years, this one has a much more satisfying arc. It has a definite start and end. And any of the questions that are left over are, to me, are like bonus things as opposed to, oh, I feel ripped off because they didn't explain this piece of the story at all sort of feeling. So I understand what you're saying about that baseball episode, but I like that. I actually like that episode quite a bit.
I have to admit that I actually liked that episode a lot as well. And my problem is maybe that they didn't have more episodes like that.
Oh, okay.
I almost thought that was more interesting than the main story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the series is definitely set up to like a doctor show, like a cop show. You can have new patients coming in every week and tell a different story. So it was structured for that. It's just too bad that I believe the show aired to initially really strong ratings, but as it went on, it got worse and worse. And then by the time it was interrupted, I think the ratings were pretty poor.
Yeah, and I think the plan actually was to do a second season for it
if
it had drawn more audience.
From what I've seen here on the internet, again, this is the internet, but apparently Steve King did have a Bible mapped out for the second season if the series had gone longer.
Yeah, and I must say that since this is based on another story, another TV show, the strangeness that I had some problems with is actually very true to the original story, because that one is even stranger. So it's right that it's there. It should be there since it's a remake or some kind of Americanized version remake, if that makes sense. So it's okay that it's there, but I didn't really get that when I had watched one episode that I want to see another one right away. It was more like I better watch one more. So I didn't really get that excited about it as I remember that I was the first time. So I don't know if it's because it's some time has passed or I don't know.
Well, I think that's a limitation of TV versus a book. But like some of the episodes would end, and it literally felt like in mid-scene. So it really felt much more like a book than a TV series. There's not really cliffhangers. It was just they would stop, and you go, what? That can't be the end of the episode. No. So for me, watching it the first time, that did compel me to watch the next one. But I think once you know the whole story, the limitations of the TV series is that you don't really get into too many of the characters' heads, maybe one or two. So there's not that drive to want to revisit it again the next time because you don't get into the characters' heads too much. So there's not really a lot of, beyond some visual references and some lines referring other Stephen King works and things like that, there's not a lot of meat to the characters. I think that's probably the weakest aspect of the series, is that the characters are pretty one or two dimensional, and their story's been told. There's no surprises left with them.
No.
So I think that's why rewatching it might not be as intriguing the second time around. Plus, we've seen one season miniseries now in the intervening years that have been done better and are more layered. So this is like one of the earlier springs of this type of storyline, and pretty amazing, really, when you watch it, that this was on a standard network, because it goes in some pretty weird places. I mean, it's like the equivalent, I imagine, of today if you watch Hannibal on NBC. Like, that show is crazy.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it's on a public network like that. So I don't know what kind of reaction Kingdom Hospital got, because we're talking 2004. I don't think things have changed that much in the last 10 years, but there was some pretty crazy stuff in this series. So
yeah. And what did you think about the ending?
Oh, we're going to jump right to the ending. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, okay.
Whoa,
Maybe I'm moving too fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's take it easy.
Let's start at the beginning, because I totally missed this, and I don't know, maybe at the time when it aired there was big chatter about it, but the pilot or the opening episode just killed me. Like, that was an amazing, from what they're telling us, a pretty amazing recreation of Stephen King's accident, getting hit by the van. I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah, it's really brutal.
Yeah, what did you think of that?
Yeah, it's really, really horrific, because this aired in like 2004 and King's accident was in 99.
Right.
So it wasn't that many years after, and they are really, really playing off what really happened, because the dog was going for the cooler and the meat, and the driver was looking at him more than on the road, and that's what happened when King was hit. So I think King took a lot of that from what happened to him.
Yeah, like in the commentary, when he showed his wife that, she says, "How many times are you going to write about this that stupid thing, accident?" He says, "Till I get it out of my system." It's like, because we got it in the Dark Tower as well. But yeah, I was stunned by how close it played to what happened to Stephen King. And what I really liked about this, and in general about this series, is, and it's really quite amazing actually, is that one director directed all the episodes, and his name is Craig Baxley, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And he also worked with Stephen King on Storm of the Century, and he did Rose Red and The Diary of Ellen Rumbauer. And another cool thing is, because before he was a director, he was a stunt director, and he did the stunts on the Predator movie, with the original one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But thinking back on Storm of the Century and this series, I thought this series was really well directed. I liked a lot of the shots that they did. There was a lot of interesting camera moves. I thought the flow of the series visually and everything looked really well done, and I really liked the work that this director did, and the fact that he did every episode, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
that's very unusual for a TV series.
Yeah, it looks very nice.
Yes.
Very nice to look at footage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2004 series, and it still holds up today visually, and in general, if you compare this to Golden Years, where we complained that it looked cheap at times, I never had that feeling with this series. Maybe some of the scenes where they were showing like the history of the area with the children and the fire, and that was restricted to TV budget stuff, but in general, like the hospital sets and everything else that they did, I thought this, and then special effects, I thought that you could see the money was on the screen on this series, and I thought it contained everything that I had wished that the Golden Years, from a production special effects standpoint of view, had contained, where that one looked really done on the cheap. This one was a very professional and expensive looking series. Yeah,
I agree. The cast was more solid on this one as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, there was maybe one weak link, and I wouldn't even call it weak, it was just kind of disappointing link, but across the board, I think this show was really well cast, and it's got a kick for me, because when I'm watching this, because I'm from Canada, I think you can pick up on the vibe of if you see something that's done in your home country, you can pick up on the vibe of that. Now, I didn't know where they had filmed this, but once I got into watching, I says, "Oh, this must have been filmed in BC, because in British Columbia, and sure enough, it was filmed around Vancouver and Burnaby, and I could just pick up on that, and especially a lot of the supporting actors. They're Canadian actors that I recognize in other things. So I guess Canadian viewers, you might enjoy it on that level. And especially recently, if you've watched shows that have been produced in Vancouver, like Fringe and Battlestar Galactica and Caprica and shows like that, you see a lot of these actors in those shows as well. So I kind of got a kick out of that as well. And I just think that in general, this is a very polished production, I guess I want to say overall, like from everything from the music, special effects. I mean, did you know right off the bat that those elevators were all done in CGI?
No, no.
It took me until I think the one shot with the fire showing down the shaft. And I said, okay, you know what? That's not the only thing that's CGI. This whole thing is CGI, but it didn't matter. It was well done. And the Anubis character, which I thought was a neat twist on Anubis, which is, of course, the Egyptian god of the dead, but the girl's understanding of it turned it into Anubis. I thought that creature was really well done. I mean, you could tell it was CGI, but it didn't take me out of the moment at any point. Did you ever have any troubles with that creature?
No, I liked it. And that one is actually not in the original TV series, the Danish one.
Is there any sort of comparable creature or no?
No.
Okay.
That's totally king.
Okay. Was there some sort of character that represented death or the crossing over of death in the original series?
I have to admit that it's been a very long time since I saw the original one, so I don't remember. But I know that there wasn't anything that was represented by a strange animal anyway.
Getting back to the cast, sorry, I got off on a bit of a tangent there. I think that Stegman, who was played by Bruce Davison, the character is a very annoying character, and you're happy for every bad thing that happens to him, but Bruce Davison as the actor also, while portraying this guy was a real pompous jerk, also made me feel sorry for him a little bit. And I think that's a very difficult thing to do. Like, I just didn't outright despise this character. I didn't like him, but I felt sorry for him. Like, did you have that as well, or?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you could feel for him, but you still didn't like him. But wasn't just evil.
Yeah, I mean, he was a standout character for me.
Yeah, I think he was the best character.
He had the juiciest role too. So
yeah,
the other actors like Andrew McCarthy is Hook and that. The rest of them were okay, but as I mentioned earlier, none of them had a lot of depth, so there wasn't a lot to sink your teeth into with those characters. No. I'm curious, was there any character on the show that you didn't like?
Yes. I had some problem with this Outre character.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I thought you were going to say something else.
Yeah, I have more. Because, well, my problem with this Outre character is that he looks too strange, I think. He looks too weird. I mean, he didn't really act that weird. But with those big glasses and making his eyes very, very big, and it was almost more funny. And I don't think that was the meaning of his character. So I think that was a little bit miscasting, maybe. And then those two, I don't remember their name, who were those pink uniforms.
Oh yes,
Abel and Krista, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abe and Crystal, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't work for me. It wasn't just they weren't that good actors. But I think those characters were misused.
Okay.
Like when they were watching Hook and I don't remember what the female was named, but when they were sitting down in his place there, and they sent those text messages, and they interfered in the story a bit, and I know that was their purpose, but it didn't really work for me. I think it got a bit silly from time to time, I think.
Yeah, I didn't mind it because King uses those kind of characters quite a bit, like Tom Cullen and in The Stand and that. So he uses those characters a bit. So I felt they were perfectly in place in this storyline. The only issue I had was, why did they paint or put graffiti on the doctor's car? Like, there was no motivation for that, unless we're supposed to infer that he was going to play a part in the finale, then this led him on that path of self-implosion. But because they were pretty gentle characters, so I didn't understand why they graffitiized his car. But
my only guess for that was that gave Stedman a reason to interact with the gang who was standing out of the church, and he wouldn't have that much if they were just standing there and teasing him.
Yeah.
And I think that was maybe to make their his hate for them maybe stronger, because he thought it was them who had done it first. And I also felt that they were a bit unnecessary, because when Stegman is first arriving to the hospital, and he has all these problems, his alarm goes off, he drops his bags, and it was almost like a comedian. They took it a bit too far, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't credible at all, I think. And It annoyed me a bit. I think they could have done it much better and still gotten the same effect.
Yeah, I can see that point. Okay, so is there any other characters that you didn't like, or?
I think I like the others pretty much okay.
Okay.
Some were better and some were less good, but I think the rest is okay, I think.
You want to guess which character I had trouble with?
I would say Jesse James.
No.
No?
No. My problem was with the girl that played Mary.
Ah.
Because while she looked the part and she was able to do, and this is the trouble with casting children, and especially Stephen King stories, the children are such an important part of the story. And while she could sell the creepy stuff to me and some of the storyline stuff, but she didn't have the range to sell the terror and make me feel sad for her character. Like when she was crying and things like that, that just felt really fake to me. It felt very, very forced, and that. So,
yeah.
And that's too bad because she looked the part. Like she was perfectly cast from a physical point of view, and with her makeup and that, I thought she wardrobed and everything quite well, but she just didn't have the acting range to sell me on those big emotional moments and show her terror and her sadness and that. So, I mean, she was good at looking creepy and stuff like that, but she didn't sell me on the emotional parts that were really important to the story.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see your point. Definitely.
Yeah, so that's too bad because she was certainly not bad and she was competent, and I think overall she did it for her age. She did as good a job as she could, but she didn't sell me on the emotional moments, which is too bad because that I think if that would have happened, I think a lot of more people would have been hooked into the story because she's the heart of the story, and if you don't buy into her emotions, it makes it hard for the rest of the story to work for you as well. But I mean, she's really the only weak link in the story. So,
yeah.
And beyond that, I guess we can get a little bit into the storyline at this point.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about an actor, and that is I feel a little bit sorry for Jack Coleman, who plays Peter Rickman. I mean, good point.
His part isn't
very funny.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just laying there in bed almost all the time, and then wandering the hospital. So it must be a pretty disappointing role to play.
Yeah, I think he said in the commentary he never had a part where he had so many close-up shots and had to try to convey things with his eyes and stuff like that. And I'm glad you mentioned his Jack Coleman, because if you've watched Heroes, you know he played what we refer to as the horn-rimmed glasses guy, who was the father of the cheerleaders. So it was quite a kick to see him cast in this role. And he's a tall dude, and he had when he was jogging, he had a sweatshirt on. I think it said tall short or something like that. But it was a kick to see him, knowing that this was the guy that played the father on Heroes. And the other thing that was interesting about this, and you could see this is really an interesting time capsule in King's life, because you can see the baseball influence with the Boston Red Sox. They had never won the World Series up to that point, and there was the curse of that the Red Sox would never win another World Series. And of course, since this series, the show's been made, they've gone on to win a couple of times. So they transported that Boston curse to Lewiston, and they have the Robins, which led to that baseball episode. So you could tell that King was influenced by what had happened with the Red Sox, as well as the seeds of Duma Key are here, because we have this character who's an artist. Yeah. And even though he can't talk, later on he's able to draw scenes or such scenarios and situations that everybody's trying to find out what the mystery of the hospital is. So there's a lot. It's a really cool time capsule of where King's head was at during the making of this series.
Yeah, and I also thought that was a bit strange. He could draw like a new Mona Lisa maybe, but he couldn't write that her name is Mary.
Yeah.
But he draws, so that was, I mean, he should have been able to write what he meant instead of having them guesses from.
Well, that's art comes from the emotions, right?
Yeah.
Words come from the logical part of your brains.
Yeah.
It's just cooler that he had to draw stuff instead of just write it out. So.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been so exciting to see. With just the written words. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about the overall story. I found it very interesting that they gave you the mystery right up front, that was this fire and all these children had died. So I was going like, wow, usually that's something you don't find out until the second last episode of the series. So I found that very an interesting approach. But apparently, again, because this show is based on the Danish series, that those opening scenes of the fire and that are pretty close to what happens in the original series. Is that correct?
Yes, I remember it. I think so, yeah.
So what did you think about the fact that you already knew what was going on in the hospital, like why it was being haunted? Did that surprise you, or you...
No, yeah, no, it didn't surprise me. I was more like I actually liked that part. They twisted it around that instead of finding out what the mystery was later on, you got that part right off, and then you had to figure out what they were going to do to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually like that twist because, as you say, it's the mystery that is revealed last. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that was a good way
Okay.
to go. Yeah.
And it was interesting that, how do I say this? The reveal, they set us up with this original reason why we thought the hospital was haunted, but then we find out that Mary, who, at least for me, I thought for most of the series that she, I guess maybe 3/4 of the way through the series, that she had died in the fire as well. But then we start finding about this other doctor that's a brother of the mill owner, and then you start to get the pieces coming together that, oh, she escaped and she was actually tortured to death because, or yeah, experimented on, because you kept on wondering why she had those 2 scars on her forehead. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a neat reveal.
Yeah, I actually thought that she had been tortured by that evil doctor, but maybe not killed by him. But I actually thought that because he used that long stick on someone else as well. So I thought I thought he had used them to maybe probe in her brain. But as it turns out, he used them to just hack her
Right.
to death. So, but I thought early on that she was his victim, definitely.
Okay, cool. What other stuff about the story? We're just gonna go random right now.
Yeah.
We're not gonna, like, there's 13 episodes. The first one and the last one are 2 hours each, and the other ones are about, like you said, 40 minutes. So even though it lists 13, it's really 15 episodes. And for the most part, one episode leads into the other. We did mention the one with the baseball player. There's also that's a standalone. There's also one with a lawyer that goes over 2-3 episodes, but it's pretty self-contained.
Yeah.
We also have the criminal who's trying to kill Peter, and he eventually gets burnt to death. And they all meet different fates, as well as the guy that ran into Peter. He shows up at the hospital. So that was funny. And another standalone, and it's the actress that played Kate on Lost. She doesn't even have a speaking part. I don't even think she moves.
No.
She's just lying in the bed, and her husband, or I assume it's her husband, finds out that she's been having an affair.
Yeah.
So he shoots her in the head, and she's lying there in bed, and then he kills himself. And the interesting thing about that is in the first episode, when Peter's running, he's listening to it. And it's funny to watch. He's carrying a CD player, and he's listening to that music, and it's called, the name of the song is Red Dragon Tattoo. And when you see the girl in bed, she's got a big red dragon tattoo across her whole back. So that was kind of a neat tie-in there. So,
and the fact when I don't remember how known she was back in 2004, but when you saw it now, I didn't remember the episode.
Right.
So I was sure she was gonna have a bigger part.
Yeah.
Because she was a known actress, but I don't know if she was back then. But that was a nice twist. You didn't expect her to die so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was before Lost. So yeah, we had no idea probably at the time who she was, but
no.
Now you watch it's a kick to see her, especially since she's in the Hobbit movies and another Canadian actress. So,
and I must say, since you brought out the music, I think that is one of the key element in this series. I really like the music in it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's some great songs in there.
Yeah,
and there's also some great stunt casting as well. We have this caretaker, Johnny Be Good, that Stegman's trying to find out through the whole series, and he's always off doing something. He's either getting his teeth fixed or he's on jury duty. Yeah. And the alternate custodian is usually some actor that we're supposed to recognize. So I think the first time it's Charles Martin Smith, who had the first time I ever saw him was in Buddy Holly, in the Buddy Holly story. He was part of the band. And of course, he's gone on to a lot of other things. And then another week we had Wayne Newton.
Yeah.
And finally, in the last episode, Johnny Be Good shows up, and ta-da, it's
Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Speaking of Stephen King, did you catch how many Stephen King reference did you catch in this series?
Well, there were quite a few. So, do you have like a list, or because I caught a couple, but
yeah, I think I got 4 of them.
4? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, one is I'm not sure, but I think they mentioned sometime in the series that it's like in a Stephen King book or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly who said it, but
yeah, the wife did once, I'm sure.
Yeah, And at one point, the wife is reading. I think it's Misery.
Yep.
And then you have, of course, Johnny B. Good.
Yep.
And you have Stephen King as a lawyer in a commercial on the TV.
Yep. Which was kind of funny because he's watching himself, right?
Yeah, and that is a reuse from Storm of the Century. It's actually
the same.
Oh,
okay. I didn't know that.
When the first older woman gets shot, she's watching that on TV.
Oh, okay. There was another one that I caught.
Yeah.
The Pop Machine, Nozola.
Yeah. But did it say Stephen King? No.
No. Oh, you mean Stephen King? I thought you meant anything related to a Stephen King book or something.
Okay. No, I meant Stephen himself.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Otherwise, there were more of them. So.
Yeah. The other interesting actor to show up was the cigarette smoking man from X-Files. He was in one scene. The other arc that we never really mentioned, it was interesting, is because that's the Passion of Reverend Jimmy, and that's the one where the priest from the local what do you call it? Shelter. Thank you. See, you know English better than I do. Is crucified. Why? We never find out. On a fence with barbed wire and all that stuff. That episode was written by Tabitha. So most of the episodes were written by Stephen King and Richard. Is it Dooling? I believe. Dooling. But that one was actually written by Tabitha. At least in the credits, it said it. So, and that was one of those arcs that went for an episode or two and then died out. And the nurse character that worked there, I think that was her last bit of interaction in the episode. After that, we never saw her in the other episodes after that. So that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah. And speaking of nurses, I must mention that I quite enjoyed the nurse that always fainted
at the sight of blood. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think at the end when she saw Peter Rickman walking, I think she fainted when she saw him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and like those two ambulance guys, they were kind of like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Because if you remember like that, the shot they have of him lying on the side of the road, like both his feet are pointing the same direction.
Yeah.
That's the shot that gives me the creeps out of anything. Like his chest looks kind of funny, but his legs, they just look like, those two feet pointing the same ways.
Very creepy.
Yeah, so I don't have anything specific about the episodes themselves. I mean, there was a lot of cool shots in some of them. In the earlier episodes, the shot, and I couldn't figure out what it was at first, but that doll was sitting on top of the elevator, and I thought it was like a little gremlin or something at first, but then it fell over and you saw that it was a doll, so I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
And I thought the scenes of the corridor that was the interconnection between the real and the death world, I thought the sets for that were really well done.
Yeah.
Plus, then we had that dude with no head running around.
Yeah.
And again, the special effects for that were well done too, right?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought they were.
Yeah, well, maybe. I'm not sure. I thought that was almost too comical.
Yeah, well, it was
running around there looking for his head and.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the series is very, very nice.
Yeah.
Looking. I mean, even the intro is nice to look at. It's good music. It's a solid and very nicely done TV show.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that. It didn't really grab me as much as I thought it would the second time I saw it.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
I'll have to let it sit for a while and watch it maybe in a year or two, see how I feel. But right now, I liked it quite a bit. And it rates a little bit higher on IMDb than Golden Years. Like it gets a 6.5. I think Golden Years was at 5.2. I was actually surprised. I thought Kingdom Hospital would get like around a 7 or something. Because I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah. If you could have a remake of either Kingdom Hospital or Golden Years today, which would you pick?
Oh, Golden Years, definitely.
Yeah.
Because of all the deficiencies we mentioned in the production and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I find that story in itself more interesting.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that TV series hasn't survived the years as good as Kingdom Hospital has, definitely.
No. Yeah.
But I think if you would do it today in proper ways and with the right money and right special effects, I think that would be a more interesting story.
Absolutely. The other thing I would like to mention is about the DVD set itself. I don't know what it's like over on your side of the pond, but here it comes in a 2-case set. The series is on 4 DVDs, and the first episode has a commentary track with Stephen King, the director, the producer, and the special effects guy. And there's not a lot of stuff in there, but it's interesting just to, again, it's that great time capsule because these people have all worked together since Storm of the Century. So they were talking about coming off the stand and moving into Storm of the Century and then working on this series. And they're talking about some of the difficulty shooting because I shot the series in the exteriors in Vancouver, and the interior sets were all built in a soundstage. And the ICC unit where Peter is and the nurse's station is outside near the bridge of the Enterprise, because you got like these 8 partitions for each one of the patients there, and then in the center you have the nurse's station, which is the captain's chair. The other interesting thing was that the series went to production. All 15 scripts had been written, and because of that, they were able to save a lot of money, because they could shoot every scene that would take place on a particular location all the way through before moving on to the next location. So from a acting point of view, you were going through 15 episodes worth of material in one location, which must have been very difficult and for the actors to keep straight. And that's very unusual with the TV series. Usually you shoot all the locations for that episode and then you move on to the next one. I find that quite cool. Besides that, there's 3 featurettes, or 4 actually. Together they make about an hour. It's your normal production, the making of video. There's one with the cast and the crew. Another one about designing the sets, and then the last one, which is cool, it's about 8.5 minutes long, is the magic of Antibus, and it goes about how they designed the creature. And at one point they were thinking of using an actor in a suit for some of the on-screen stuff, but then they changed that all to CGI. And I think you can tell that the character's CGI, but he's so well developed in that it didn't bother me. And when that anteater, like most anteaters don't have teeth like that either, so when he opened up his mouth the first time and all those teeth came out, that was really cool. Yeah. So these featurettes they're very professionally done. They're done by Laurent Bourreau, if you are into movies or not, a lot, and DVDs, special editions, and with behind the scenes stuff. I used to be into that quite a bit more 10 years ago, but he's done all like the specials on Alien, all the Alien DVDs and Blade Runner and stuff like that, The Abyss. So he does really good behind the scenes stuff. And this is, even the DVD set is a very professionally produced, like everything about this series has polish to it. And I love the fact that this series was filmed in widescreen, so when you watch it on your TV, widescreen TV, it fills up the whole screen. Yeah, it's just a really solid production. I mean, we can quibble about how we reacted to the material, but I don't think anybody's going to say that the show looked cheap or poorly done.
No, the Swedish edition on DVD is practically the same as you describe it here.
Okay.
But I was wondering, on my version, the Swedish DVD, they have divided the first and last episodes. You have episode 1, part A and part B, and the same with the last episode. Is it the same on yours?
No, both those are one long, almost a movie length episode.
Yeah. I guess that's probably because here in Sweden we don't often have the extra long episodes, so I think they had to maybe chop them up and do it like 15 episodes.
Oh, okay.
Here in Sweden instead. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I was a bit confused about that first, but I checked on the internet and so. Yeah,
because you said there was 15 episodes, and we were emailing during the week, and I said, well, I'm only about halfway through, and then I started watching it, and it's like, oh, there's only 2 episodes left. I thought there was 15. There's only 13. What's going on? So, and then okay, the last and the first one are combined. That's why.
Yeah. But I think that's typical on the international market. They do that. So each TV station can decide if they want to do like 15 episodes or do like you did in the US, extra long episodes.
Yeah. So if you had to give this a series a rating out of 10, what would you give it?
It's difficult. I think the look of it would get the grade up, and the weirdness of it would get the grade down. So I think it would end up somewhere like 6 or 7, I think.
Okay, we're pretty close then. I'd probably range in the 7.5 to 8 category.
Yeah.
I think all the pieces are in place in there. I think if they just could have developed some of the lead actors, like I'm drawing a blank on his name now, the guy that played Dr. Hook, if his character could have been developed a bit more. He was a pretty straight arrow, so there wasn't a lot of layers to him. And Diane's lad character, Sally Drews, as the mystic, she was kind of interesting, but so-so. Again, there wasn't a lot to her. She didn't seem to have a life outside of what she was doing at the moment, I guess was the issue for me there. Just a couple of other tidbits that I missed while we're talking. In case anybody was wondering, Bruce Davison has also had previous King connections. He did the narration from a Buick 8, and that's how he got this gig. He told King sent him a letter saying that he liked his work on the reading of that book, and he sent him replied, says, "Oh, I'd love to work with you again someday in the future." And when Kingdom Hospital came up, King recommended Davidson, and even though Davidson didn't have a particularly good audition, he still got the part. So
helps to have the support of King.
Yeah, outside of the sport game. Though, and apparently Andrew McCarthy didn't give a good reading either, and I guess he was partly because King was actually present at his audition, so he got nervous or whatever. So afterwards, he contacted the producer and said, "I'd like to redo that because I can do a better job of it." And he actually flew out to Vancouver on his own dime and re-auditioned, and then he got the part. So that was interesting. And the one thing that was bugging me through the whole series is Diane Ladd's character, Sally Juice, kept on talking about Swedenborgian space. And I thought, what the heck is that? And I don't understand why they didn't stop to explain it, because apparently this is the last name of a 17th century scientist, Emanuel Swedenborg. And he was big into this whole life after death, the connection between the living and the dying. So I think they should have stopped for a second and talked about that, because everybody likes Swedenborgian space, but nobody's explaining what that exactly means. You know,
No.
like, are we talking about the Borgs from Star Trek, or like what are we talking about? Swedes.
I took it was that it was Sweden.
Yeah.
They were visiting Sweden.
Yeah, because what's Sweden got to do with this? Yeah, it was kind of like, I don't know why they didn't explain that, but
No.
so overall, yeah, I found it an interesting series, and it definitely sort of I think one of the actors called it like ER on Twin Peaks on acid or something like that.
Yeah, sounds right. And the original series ran for 2 seasons, but it only had like 8 episodes per season. It was actually planned for a 3rd season, but
Right.
both the character who played Sally Drews, the Danish version, and Stegman both died, so it wasn't much left to work with, since they were the bigger part in that version. So
What was his name in the Swedish version, or Danish version? Sorry,
um
it wasn't Stegman. It was something like, was it just Stig or something?
yeah, I think so. If you keep talking, I will look it up.
Okay. What else can I talk about?
Well, I have something more.
Okay.
There was actually a book released at the same
Oh.
time as this aired in the US, and it was called the Journals of Eleanor Drews.
Mhm.
And that was, of course, the book wasn't written by Eleanor Drews, because she's a fictional character. But nobody know who wrote it. It was a well-kept secret. And the book was done as that she had written a journal
Right.
about the hospital and what happened there and everything, and actually sent to King to get help to get it published. So it was released like a tie-in to the TV series. And the speculations flew high on who wrote it, if it was King who wrote it or anybody else. It was, I think even Tabitha was named as its writer. But it turned out to be Richard Dooling who wrote it, co-writer to the show. Yeah, so that's if you want to check that out, you can do that. It's not the best book, but it's interesting.
Oh, okay.
It ties
I have
in
to confess,
well
I've never read it.
No, it ties in well to the story.
Okay. And the character's name from the Kingdom was Stig Helmer.
Yeah, and he was played by Ernst Hugo Järegård.
Ooh, geez, yeah, I'm looking at that. There's like all these funny accents above his vowels in his last name. I'm going, ooh, Joe.
Yep. And he was a very special actor. He often played nasty and evil persons. So
Oh, okay.
he was perfect in this role.
All right, so that is our discussion on Kingdom Hospital. If you enjoyed Golden Years, I think that you will definitely enjoy this series quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out, and it's got a Stephen King cameo, so there you go.
And definitely check out the Danish version, The Kingdom.
Yes, I intend to do that as well. Unfortunately, I didn't have time before this podcast, but I plan to do that as well.
Same here. It will be interesting to see how you feel about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting looking at the cover, because it kind of reminds me of one of the early covers from The Shining or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's nothing like The Shining, I can tell you that.
Okay.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around and pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the night shift. Now we're going to another Stephen King piece of work, but this time we're going back to the written work. And for you who have not had the opportunity to get the Turn Down the Lights 25th Anniversary Cemetery Dance Collection, there is a story in there by Stephen King. It's actually the first story in the book, and it is called Summer Thunder. And this is a post-apocalyptic story, I guess you could say.
Yep.
And it's really only about 2 characters, or 3 if you want to count a dog, but it's about a middle-aged man, an old man and his dog, and not his dog, but a dog that the younger man finds actually, and they're just basically marking time. This is a post-nuclear world in which some other smaller countries, it's never really specified who or what, have touched off a nuclear holocaust, the global holocaust, we're led to believe, and everybody's dying or is dead, and these two guys are the only guys left, and they're marking time as well. And wonder if they're going to survive or not, but once the dog starts getting sick, then the writing's on the wall for these two characters as well.
Yep.
And by the end of the story, the old man has passed away, and the main character has decided instead of, well, he does commit a form of suicide, but instead of what we think, he's probably going to either use a gun or a needle. He gets a battery for his Harley and drives it off a sharp turn called Dead's Man Curve and out over into the water.
Yeah.
And that's the story.
Yep.
So, what did you think?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I like the fact that, and I think this is one of King's strengths as well, that you can. It's just like we're just looking into these two characters for a very short time. We don't know that much, at least, of what's happened before we enter,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know what's going to happen to the world after we enter. We just check in like for a couple of days, and we get to see these people, and even though we don't know what's happened or what's going to happen, we are still captured by their fate and what's happening to them. And I think that's one of King's strengths, that he can put you in that mood for a character even though you don't know very much about him. And I like these kind of stories where everything doesn't end well, because we get enough of those stories in the cinemas, and so I like this where everything is for lack of a better word. And yeah, I like it. I think it's a nice story. Or maybe not nice, but it's...
You know I'm going to have to beep that to keep our rating down.
Yep. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Everything that you're saying is true, and I think... no, I don't think I know. But my reaction to the story is quite a bit different than yours. I do agree that the characters are well drawn. You're totally in their headspace, can understand where they're at. But I just find that this story is like... And this is me. This story is like 30 years too late. The whole thing about nuclear holocaust and that's like the day where I'm thinking back to the day after when that aired on, like, these kind of stories were really popular 20, 30 years ago. And I find it weird that King would revisit, and maybe that's the whole point, that he fears that we've gotten complacent or put this out of our heads. But I just don't really want to go back into that headspace about thinking about nuclear war, and that's what this story is forcing me to do. And I find it a real downer from that perspective. So I didn't. You're going to tell me that it's poorly written or anything? I would say absolutely not. It's very well written, and you really get into this character's head. But the theme of what the story is all about is, it's a big downer. And maybe we need these reminders, but it's like watching Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan. It's something that you know that you should be aware of, but it's not really a place that I want to go back to.
But I think it can be the case that I think King wanted to put us in a place where all hope is out. Everything, it can only get worse from where we are now. And I think since he had such a short space to do that, I think it's easy if you say, oh, the bombs has dropped. Everybody know that we are in this place where everything is lost. Instead, if you're going to take something modern warfare or disease or something, then you need more time to build until you get to that.
Well, why don't you just do zombies then?
Yeah.
Why don't you just do some sort of Walking Dead riff? I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, here you are he just have to say that the bombs has fallen. Yeah. And everybody knows that the world is going to end.
Yeah.
So he doesn't. I don't think that maybe that his point was to put you in that mindset of the Cold War. But I think more that he wanted to put you in the mindset of the world is over, it's done. And I think that this is a fast way of doing it, since he doesn't have much time to put you there.
It's a good theory, but for my part, that element of the story took me right out of wanting to think about this story too much.
Yeah.
I just don't want to go into that headspace anymore, and maybe that's a bad thing on my part. and maybe a foolish thing. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's the purpose of the story too. Like you said, he might have used it as a shorthand for him to set up a world that's dying. But for me, it just killed any enthusiasm I had for the story. So.
Yeah.
And I like the characters, and he makes a reference to A Boy and His Dog, which is a Harlan Ellison reference.
Yeah.
And he gets to tie in his motorcycle fascination here too. So
Yeah.
again, it's an interesting time capsule of where his head is at. But I'm just curious why he would want, beyond what you put forth as making the story easy to get into quickly, which it does. But why would he want to revisit that type of story beyond that? It just, I don't know. This feels something to me that he would have written 30 years ago.
Maybe he didn't have kept it in a drawer.
Maybe he did. Maybe it's a trunk story.
Yeah, but I like the fact that when you get it, as when I was reading this story, I wanted to know more about how they got in this situation.
Well, he touches upon it briefly in the story, right? He says,
yeah,
it's not the superpowers that are the problem now. It's all the other countries that are developing nuclear technology. So
yeah. But I would like it to be like a full novel, like 500-600 pages, and this was the ending of the novel.
Well, I have that with all his short stories.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, I think maybe we don't want that. I mean, it's two-edged. You want to know what happened, but on the other hand, you want to paint it up for yourself to why they end up in this situation. So, again, I think that's one of his strengths in writing. That you want to know more, but then, yeah, you know quite a lot by what he's telling you anyway. So,
but unlike you, I don't have any desire to know anymore about what happened in the story, whereas opposed to say like Batman and Robin have an altercation like that. Yeah, I want to know more about those characters.
Yeah.
But these characters, not really.
Yeah.
What's there to know? Because at the end they have no future. That's just me. That's one of the reasons why I stopped watching The Walking Dead, because it's just the same thing over and over again. People have a moment and then they get killed off, and then they bring in more people and they have a moment and they get killed off, and that's just rinse and repeat. There's no forward momentum in that story. So this is the same kind of dead end story for me, and there's no need to go back to it again. But what do I know? Walking Dead's the most popular show on TV right now, and a lot of people like it.
Yep.
So, and you included. So
me included.
But if I don't care about the characters, and I don't think there's any hope, like Shawshank Redemption's a dark story, but there's hope. There's always hope, right? And there's no hope in this story. This is it. This is the end.
Yeah.
Game over.
No, but I think that's part of the fascination for the story with me, that this is the end, and what's happening, or how do they react, and
they die. Game over.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, but I think often certainly in movies you get in this hopeless situation, and then something more or less believable happens, and everything ends well, and everybody lives happily ever after. And I think that's often that is not very realistic done. So I think it's good that we have those.
And I hear what you're saying there. For me, the trick is to have the characters win, but the price of what they do to win is really high. And to me, the best example outside of a King story is like Lord of the Rings. Like all these different races are getting together to save the world from this evil force, even though they know if they win, they are all going to be lost, and man is going to take over their place. But if they don't do anything, then this evil is going to take over the whole world. So those are the kind of stories that I like, and I think King does that a lot. Like in Shawshank Redemption, Andy, it takes him 25 years, half his life, to get out of jail for something that he didn't do. Like that's the kind of story that I like, where you have to pay a really high price to get victory. And a story like this, and I know I'm not going to go back to it, because I can tell, because I keep having trouble remembering what the title of the story is. It's already leaving my head, because it's like it was like a bitter pill that it might have been good medicine, but I don't want to repeat the experience. So
I hope this book story will be released in a more widely ranged version,
sure,
so more people can read it, because I want to hear what other people think about it. So,
and for those people who have been lucky enough to get this book and read it, please again weigh in with your responses. Are you more on Hans' side of the fence, or mine, or are you in the middle? I'm going to be very interested to see what the general reaction to this story is, because to me it's just a big downer. But
it's a downer to me as well, but I like downers.
Yeah, it's well written, but it's a downer. Yeah. Okay, so you got anything else you want to add about that? Or?
No.
All right. So that is the end of our review of, what's the story again, Tom?
Summer Thunder.
Summer Thunder.
Yep. And that's it for this, the 30th episode of our podcast. Can't believe we have been doing 30.
Really, eh?
30 of them
Jeez.
now. It's nice. Yeah. Gonna have to bake a cake to celebrate.
It'll be stale by the time.
Stick a thumb in it. Yeah.
30th
Yep.
anniversary. Woo-hoo.
And yeah, so for the next podcast, we didn't really have anything planned, so we have decided to let you decide for us. We wanted to do a movie review of one of King's movies, but can't decide which one, so we're gonna let you decide. Send in suggestions through the Facebook page, Twitter, audio widget, email, anything, any way you can. Shout it from the rooftops. And we're going to pick the one that most of you want to hear. Hopefully it's not the entire Dead Zone series, because that will take forever.
or any of the Children
if
of
that
the
is the
Corn
people's-
movies, please, no.
Yeah. But if that is the people's choice, we're going to have to do it. So let us know, and we'll get back on which one we will pick. But until then, thanks for this time, and stay safe, but
Stay scared.